Hello, is there anyone out there? This is becoming embarrassing. The I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties. I can't really explain it. You couldn't hear me when I was trying to stream on the other machine, and yes, it seems we're getting some people back in. I don't know what happened there. I was streaming on the other machine, which suddenly there was no internet capability on it, and the sound had died, and dearie me, and even that machine now, it simply can't find the internet. So I'm just going to reboot it. When in doubt, turn it off and turn it back on again. I do apologize. Can you all hear me? Can everybody let me know if they can hear me now? Okay. Because I thought I was being really clever. Yes, I am slightly late. I do apologise. It's took me an entire can of beer to get that fixed. It seems you can hear me. Yes, right. Shall we get settled in then? What I did was last week the live stream all exploded in a shower of cogs and springs because I was streaming on a knackered old Windows 7 laptop, and I thought I'll be clever this week. I'll go live on the main machine, you know, the posh new Windows 10 machine, and I'm rattling away to myself, and everybody's saying we can't hear you, and so tried to resurrect that stream. That Windows 10 machine has absolutely lost the plot completely. It can't find the internet, so it's rebooting at the moment. And now I'm back on the good old faithful knackered laptop for now. So cheers, everyone. It's just bizarre. It's just technology. So what sort of week we all had? I got to tell you, I saw the funniest thing at the supermarket, well, outside the supermarket. It was, yeah, Kieran's in. Evening, Kieran. How are you, mate? Outside the supermarket, there was an elderly lady, and she was wearing a face mask. Entirely understandable in these times. I get it, and we're not going to kind of talk too much about that. But she'd got a hole poked in the front of the face mask so she could smoke a cigarette. Isn't that just brilliant? It's just, Dan's been bitten the bullet and been learning modes. How you been getting on, mate? Yes, Kieran's saying it's that the silence was like when we started using Zoom for lessons. Yes, Zoom is on the whole more reliable, I think, than Skype. But when it goes wrong, it can be a bit of a faff around to fix it. Yes, despite the muted start, it seems to I've still managed to get through 2 tins. Dearie me, well, I've got through a tin and a half. And yes, so we won't be beaten. Let's just say that much. The numbers are creeping up. I see there's we're about halfway there to the usual numbers that we normally get this far in. So hopefully people will start to kind of find us again on this hidden stream. Apparently nicotine helps fight it. Is that correct? Well, I'd better crack on then, haven't I? Dan saying the brandy's on hold. I'm being tight. Found some not quite empty bottles of whiskey. Well, given the choice, I would rather drink the worst whiskey in the world than the best brandy, it has to be said. I wouldn't kind of, if brandy's all there is, it'll get drunk, believe me. But if it's a choice between a brandy and a whiskey, then it's always going to be the whiskey for Johnny, I'm afraid. No, this other computer, it still can't find the internet. That is really, really bizarre. It's saying that there are no wireless networks in range. Well, what am I talking to you lot on then? Hi, John. Do you still have your Harley Benton Cabronita? No, I sold it pretty soon after I got the Gordon Smith. It just wasn't getting used. What strength of vape do I use? 1.8. How do you need split a cable for one audio jack? Assuming you're not using. I am using USB audio. So no, I don't need. I'll have to sort this machine out later. It's going to annoy me if I keep staring at it. And Friday night isn't an evening to be annoyed, is it? So, just trying to work out what you mean. A TRRS splitter cable for the one audio jack, assuming that using. I don't know. Give me some more details. Just asking if coming for lessons, what you would recommend to bring with you apart from the guitar. Well, all you need, I mean, I'm not doing kind of face-to-face lessons at the moment. I'm just doing it purely online. But all you really need is a guitar to take to lessons. That's it. Still got the Harley Benton PRS copy? Yes. I do still have the Harley Benton PRS copy. I'm playing it a little bit more these days. But top of the pile is still the Telecaster that my friend in the US, Joe, got for me, and the Gordon Smith. So I would, I'm a huge fan of Gordon Smith guitars, as you may have gathered. But I'm sort of going between that and the Telecaster, and the deluxe Nashville Telecaster. And then when I want to play a slide, I play on that bits and pieces Telecaster you can see on the wall behind me. Are all the Harley Benton Tellys big necked? I've played a few of them, and I can't really say I've thought they were that gargantuan. That said, I'm not really fussy on neck profiles. The Gordon Smith has a thin neck, very much apparently like an early 60s SG, and the Telecaster that I play has like the modern kind of modern C Fender profile, and it's I can happily swap backwards and forwards between both of them, and not really feel like I need to do a lot different in terms of adjusting. How many pickup configurations are there on the Nashville Telly? It's exactly the same as a Strat. It's just got a Strat 5-way switch in it. So you miss out on that kind of Telecaster middle pickup setting with the bridge and the neck. But funnily enough, I had a Strat years ago that had on the middle pickup setting, it sounded exactly like just on the single middle pickup, it sounded exactly like a Telecaster on the middle pickup setting. And that's kind of the deal with this Nashville Telecaster. When you're on the middle pickup, it does sound a very, very lot like the middle pickup setting on a regular Telecaster. So I was going to mod it so I could get the bridge and neck on together, but it's not worth messing around with. Who else we got? David saying, I have a 2016 Gordon Smith JS1 and the pickups are like nothing I've owned. And I've owned Mott. Don't know. Gordon Smith pickups are a bit of an anomaly. Normally, I don't like ceramic magnet pickups because they tend to be either voiced very, very hot and, for kind of like DiMarzio Super Distortion or something like that. And that's not really my cup of tea, or they tend to be just cheap pickups that sound cheap and nasty. So I have a bit of an inbuilt bias against ceramic pickups, but the Gordon Smith pickups, which I believe are ceramic, are absolutely marvelous sounding. Do I still use the Harley Benton Gilmore tribute? Yes, I do, on the rare occasions when I need a trem, which I haven't been having a lot of call for it lately, but it's there, and it's like sort of, I just wanted a guitar with a trem on it that I could use whenever I need it, and because it wasn't going to be something I was using a hell of a lot, then I didn't want to spend a fortune on it. I've got the Fret Zealot on that guitar as well, so when I need to use the Fret Zealot, then that's the guitar that gets used. Jero's in. How are you, Jero? You've been watching Rabea from Anderton's find his new pickups. Man, he's got so much. Yeah, it's that's the thing. It's, whenever you see anyone who has some connection with a retailer, it's always, a little bit, misleading. Well, not misleading, but it can be deceptive, thinking that, well, let's face it, they're getting a good deal on the products they're buying, aren't they? So, or, endorsing or whatever. I mean, good luck to them. I mean, I'm not begrudging anybody getting a good deal on stuff like that, but it is tempting to think that you have to have, the cream of the crop and the kind of most expensive version of everything, because you see people doing it all the time on that there Tinternet. Truth is, I'm a big fan of Keith Williams from 5 Watt World, and his mantra is getting the most music out of the least amount of gear, and that's sort of something that I kind of resonate with. Have I thought about doing a video about how to record on a laptop via an audio interface? Well, no, I haven't really, because it would be a very short video. Plug the interface in and plug your guitar into the interface, and boom. That's how it's always been for me, anyway. And I don't have a whole evening, Craig. How are you, mate? I don't have a whole load of experience troubleshooting getting it working. So I can't really speak with any authority on, kind of getting past these problems and those glitches and stuff. Been practicing sitting down too much, and now stand up, I can't play the guitar. The strap is a bit low. Yeah, this is it. I mean, I've always found it just as comfortable standing up and sitting down playing, and that's because when I'm sitting down, the guitar is on my knee, and then I adjust the strap so that when I stand up, the guitar is at the same height. It's suddenly when the guitar goes from being there to being kind of down there that suddenly everything feels difficult. There are differences in pickups, but whenever I see Chris Buck play, it doesn't matter what guitar he plays, he always sounds like Chris Buck. Yeah, fantastic player though, isn't he? Isn't he just fantastic? Let's see if this machine's found the internet yet. No, it still can't. Oh, and now it's found the internet. Apparently the internet does exist. For those of you who weren't here earlier, I tried streaming on my other computer over here, and it just went very, 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 very wrong. And first of all, there was no sound, and then the internet apparently didn't exist according to the no networks available. The messages I was getting on that, and I was panicking. And but anyway, we're back. So. Have you been feeding the PC beer, John? No, but it nearly got a good kicking. Talk about tone. You can't sound like Brian May without Brian May's fingers. This is very true. This I remember oh, dearie me, this is going back to the 80s in one of the guitar magazines where they didn't interview Hank Marvin, they interviewed Hank Marvin's guitar tech or roadie or whatever it was. And he was saying that, like, the president of the Shadows fan club, kind of came along to one of the sound checks or whatever. And Hank had said, okay, yes, let him use my gear. And he was, kind of playing Apache or FBI or whatever it was on Hank's own gear, like Hank's Strat and Hank's, I think he was using Boogie amplifiers by then, but his rig, and he still didn't sound like Hank Marvin. So what else we got? It's all your fault. All those Harley Bentons you went on about, I had to buy one. Bought a Les Paul TV yellow, brilliant. Apart from particularly the price. Yeah, I keep looking at those like Les Paul Junior type things, the single pickup P90 ones, and I don't know. I've never been. I've always kind of not shied away from single pickup guitars. Maybe that might be the one that'll convert me though. There is something elemental about it, but I don't know. I mean, people who talk about the single P90, kind of Les Paul Special or Les Paul Junior type guitars, they always say they are just as versatile. You just kind of have to use them in a different way. Using the volume and tone controls, which I use all the time. I'm always riding the volume control, especially. There's a great BBC Shadows documentary on YouTube called The Shadows at 60. Well worth a watch. Thank you. I shall, because like most people now, we've got the, we stream YouTube on the telly. We've got one of those, those little Now TV things that hook up to your telly. Television, by the way, not Telecaster, and watch YouTube on there. And more often than not, that's where I'm going to find something to watch on an evening, because is anybody else like me? 30 years ago in the 80s, 4 channels, in the UK, you could always find something to watch. Now I go through page after page after page on the Sky TV guide and cannot find a single thing that I want to watch. Maybe it's just option anxiety, though. Ozzy's saying, loved it when Hank Marvin came to Knopfler's gig in the 90s. I don't know if that's the same one that I'm thinking about, but I remember it was during the Brothers in Arms tour. Hank got up with Dire Straits and did the local hero theme, and that was on the TV. I think it was done by the Tube, and that was a fantastic performance. Nils Lofgren was on there as well, actually. Yes, 57 channels and nothing on. Good title for a song. That someone should write that. Yeah, Peter's saying I hoid me telly away 9 years ago. To be honest with you, it would not be a massive hardship for me to live without a television, especially now when, in the age of YouTube and, streaming what content you want to watch onto any kind of screen you want, whether it's this kind of screen or, this kind of screen. It wouldn't be a hardship for me to live without a television, but dearie me, take it away from my missus, and that will be divorce proceedings instigated, I think. She makes jewellery, my wife. I'll have to kind of show some of it on the channel sometime. She's really, really good at it, I have to say, in my unbiased opinion. And she watches this shopping channel that's all about selling jewellery supplies. I know, riveting stuff. But it's amazing what you pick up. I can now tell you the difference between Ethiopian and Australian opal and, Botswana agate and all of this kind of stuff. It's scary how much it goes in. But then again, you see, she knows the difference between a single coil and a humbucker. Yes, Dan, Hank had the first Strat in the UK bought by Cliff Richard. There was a post-war import ban in the 50s because, Britain wanted to get its industry back up and running, so they weren't importing lots of stuff, but you could still import something as a private individual. And that salmon pink or Fiesta red or whatever colour it was, Strat, was bought by Cliff for Hank Marvin, and now Bruce Welsh has it. Apparently Bruce borrowed it at some point in the 80s and never gave it back. My wife's jewellery, get it on your Teespring. Thanks, Bob. Yes, I'd never thought of that. I didn't realise you could do that, but that is something I will look into. Because normally what she does is she just sells it like local craft fairs and stuff, and she's got a what's it called, Etsy shop where she sells via there. But obviously all the local craft markets and everything have all been suspended for the duration. Where are we? My wife knows a Les Paul from a Telecaster. She bought me my first Strat. Dearie me. My missus, I mean, we've been married 20 years this year. She's never bought me a guitar. It has to be said. I shall have to mention that at some point. Yes. I remember the jazz section on the Fast Show. Nice. Yeah, that was brilliant. I mean, I am a big jazz fan, but you got to laugh at that. That really does date you if you remember the Fast Show, doesn't it? It was a fantastic thing, and it's a shame that. In a way, it's a shame that everybody involved became big stars and went on to kind of bigger and better things, because it meant that show never really came back. There was another one that was very similar that came after it. It was called Big Train. Does anyone remember that? Ozzy saying the Strat will never catch on, mark my words. Well, that was the opinion at the time. It has to be said. I mean, has anybody seen that that documentary, Curves, Contours and Body Horns? It was like I think it was on in the 90s at some point. And marking, I think it was the 40th anniversary of the Strat. And, when Leo and George Fullett and the guys from Fender first took the Stratocaster around the trade shows, it was laughed at. It was like, what the hell is that? Is it a canoe paddle or something? What do? Shovel your snow with that? The Strat was your 40th birthday present. Dearie me, that's not a bad present for your 40th, is it? I mean, I was 50 recently. I was 53 even more recently, and I suppose I'm staring down the barrel of the one that begins with a 6, and yeah, I think a guitar might be in order for that one. I think that's enough of a landmark that I can kind of push it for that. Yeah, it was a good documentary, Chris. Buddy Holly must have been the first one to use a Strat. Who said that? One of the first to use a Strat. Yeah, he was, he was probably one of the first kind of high-profile guys to use it. I think Buddy Guy was probably using one a little bit before then. You're 51 and still learning, Thomas. Well, I think that the day you stop learning is the day that you stop being curious about, figuring new stuff out and new music. I'll give you a perfect example, right? I've been playing since 1978, and it was only about 10 years ago that I discovered the caged system. Okay, I've been using it. Okay, I've been using that method of mapping out the neck in pentatonic scales for many a decade, but it was only then that I kind of started seeing the relationship between the pentatonic scales and the chords. Your 60th is in February, dilemma, at one lovely Eastman 335 type or half a dozen Harley Bentons. Well, that comes down to the philosophical. You can tell I've had a drink. I'm using words like philosophical. That comes down to the philosophical debate about what you want a guitar to be. For me, the Harley Bentons that I own are tools that get a job done. Okay, they are just things that I need this particular type of sound for my professional endeavors. And yeah, okay, what's the most cost-effective way of getting that sound? Boom, Harley Benton. But the reason I bought the Gordon Smith was because I wanted that particular guitar because it was a little treat for myself. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Mr. Will Guitar. I do appreciate it. That will, just buy me a couple of beers. Thank you. In case anyone else is thinking of super chatting me, I don't want to discourage it. I don't want to encourage it, but I don't want to start rattling the collection tin either. If you've got a £5 in your pocket and you want to give it to me, I am most grateful. But please consider other causes before me. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, Craig, I think that's what's great about music. You never stop learning. No, and you never should, because it's Paul Gilbert. Actually, I was watching an interview with him the other day. If there's a couple of them up there, they're well worth checking out. There's one with Steve Lukather, and there's one with Paul Gilbert, and they're both interviewed by the same guy. I think it's just called The Sessions or something like that, these series of interviews. And it's kind of a long-form interview, about an hour long. He's saying that, he can't stop learning because he can't stop being curious, because he loves the guitar that much. And, he loves music that much. And there's always something that, is just beyond the horizon, that's just kind of tempting him and making him think, I wonder what that does, and that is very much, not that I'm trying to compare myself to Paul Gilbert, but that is very much how I view these things. It's if you love something, if you love a particular hobby or pastime, or in my case, I'm lucky enough to call it my livelihood. If you love it that much, then you just want to know more and more about it. I didn't expect a kind of Spanish. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. Sorry, Brian, I missed that one. Let me just scroll up to that one. Brian is saying I can't find it now. Just purchased a vintage V6 PFCB deluxe vibrato cherry burst electric guitar, red flame. Yeah, I used to love vintage guitars. I've had, the brand vintage, as breathed on by the guru Trev Wilkinson, and I've had several of them, but they are just really, really difficult to find. Many of the stockists, like GAC, Guitar Amp Keyboard, used to stock them, and now you can't find them on their website, or that they're very, very scarce. And it's like I just don't know where they've gone. The dealerships seem to not be there anymore. And then that's when I started it was actually when I was looking for one of my periodic forays into the world of Les Pauldom. I started thinking, I haven't got a Les Paul. Maybe I should kind of get something single cut-ish. And I was looking for a vintage, and I'd had one in the past, and kind of moved it on, and that's when I discovered Harley Benton. But yeah, vintage guitars are fantastic guitars. Trev Wilkinson started Fret King after vintage. I think he always had Fret King. I think Fret King was like his own brand, and then he was doing consulting work for John Hornby Skews with their vintage brand stuff, and there was always some degree of crossover there. but I played a Fret King, one of the Jeff Whitehorn ones, not long after they came out. Now, that is a beast of a guitar. That is a fantastic guitar. If you see one of those, a Fret King Jeff Whitehorn signature, it's like it's kind of like a HSS Strat, but it's got a P90 in the neck position. What a guitar, and all kinds of clever switching, but unusually for sort of intricate and versatile pickup switching and stuff. It never gets bamboozling. You never get kind of lost. So shop in York sells Wilkinson's, John, not Banks, the other shop. Yeah, I think Gear for Music carry them. But I shouldn't really say this. I've had a couple of guitars from Gear for Music, and they've not been in the best condition. You know, there's been kind of issues with them beyond just setup issues. Maybe I'm just unlucky, but you know, it's something I'm a little bit nervous about going to them again for spending. I mean, even a cheap guitar is still, a couple of £300, and that's a significant purchase, for most of us anyway. And it's just, when you've done that a couple of times, and a couple of times things have turned up in sort of dodgy condition, you're kind of a little bit reluctant to try it again. I hardly ever hear anyone from England mention PMT Music Store. Are they the black sheep? That's a good point, actually. No, they don't have that higher profile, really, in terms of, the Andertons and the Gax and the Peach guitars of this world. That's a good point. I don't know. I've never had anything from them, but anybody else got any experience of them? Somebody once asked me, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a freelance artist. They said, oh, that must be great. What do you do? Or what do you like to do as a hobby? I said, art. Here's the thing, right? Excuse me. A few years ago, decided that I wanted a hobby that wasn't music related. So I took up painting. I was going to be a fantastic artist. I was going to be the king of the watercolor landscape. And there was a series on TV at the time I don't know if it was just on local, but I don't know if it was national or whatever. But it was this watercolor artist, and he would kind of like knock up the most amazing paintings in, a half-hour TV show. I can do that. I thought, he makes that look easy. That must be easy. Turns out it isn't. And in the end, it came down to a choice. Do I want to devote time to kind of, working on painting mountains and skies and all of that sort of stuff? Or do I want to be, kind of spend me time on the guitar? And the guitar won out in the end. There's a surprise. But it did give me a better perspective on people that I'm teaching, because it's sometimes easy to forget when you're kind of experienced at something, and when you've got like a level of ability at something, that it's that it's not easy for everybody, and kind of having that humbled me a little bit and made me kind of realize that perhaps I need to be just basically not make assumptions about what people should find easy or difficult. You had major issues with an Ibanez bought from PMT. They paid return shipping twice and then finally exchanged it for a different model, no equivalent. That's all you can ask. I mean, you can't ask for, unless you're buying a custom-built guitar that is hand-built for you, then you have to accept that you're buying a mass-produced product. And if you're buying a mass-produced product, the odd kind of bad one is going to slip through the net. So then it all becomes about the customer service and the way they treat you when you have an issue. And people have said bad things about Toman, but I've never had anything but positive experiences with Toman as in terms of customer service. So yeah, that's the important thing for me. It's a case of anybody can be a good retailer when things are going right, but how do things go how do they react when things are going badly or when you've got a bad product? That's what counts. And then somebody there's had a bad experience with them. Recently bought a classic vibe Strat, plain packaging, rusty strings, banana neck, no Allen keys, no reply at all to complaint. Yep, you see, that is the sort of thing. And are you like me? Are you guys like me? You can read 100 good reviews of a shop or a retailer or whatever. It only takes one bad review. Yeah, Toman do lack any quality control. They do. Well, certainly on Harley Benton, it has to be said. I accept that when I buy a Harley Benton guitar that I'm going to have to basically do a setup on it and maybe a bit of fret leveling and all that sort of stuff. I basically take the view that, these things these days are made on CNC machines where, you're not going to get a guy who's turning up on a Monday morning with a hangover and drills the holes for the bridge in the wrong place and therefore the guitar won't intonate, or anything like that, anything structural. But the fret leveling, the bit of fret sprout, intonation, action, all of that sort of stuff, I'm perfectly happy to do that myself on a cheap guitar. I do get a little bit annoyed when I have to do it on an expensive guitar. Yeah. A little bit of cobalt blue, no mistakes, just happy little accents. Yes, someone else has seen Bob Ross as well. It wasn't him I was watching, actually. I know who you mean. He's the oil painter guy. The chap I was watching, just come to me now, he's called Charles Evans, and he's from the UK, and he can paint the most astounding watercolors and make it look really, really easy. But trust me, it isn't. Bob Ross's son liked to have a good old time. Did he really? I remember seeing him once on an episode of that show. He was he's probably quite embarrassed by that appearance now because he was quite the 80s dude with the mullet and everything. Yeah, you've had issues with Andertons, but still use them. I've never bought anything from Andertons. I used to watch their YouTube channel quite a lot. But I'll tell you what kind of got to me a little bit was they did, one of these kind of, sound like without breaking the bank videos. And it was about Gary Moore. And now, given that vintage, yes, Baz, he is from Northumberland. Given that vintage make what is effectively, an unofficial Gary Moore kind of signature guitar, that vintage lemon drop thing, and they never even mentioned it, let alone. I mean, fair enough. I know they've got stock to shift, and I know that they're going to kind of do it. But it's like straight away. Oh, in order to sound like Gary Moore, you need a genuine Gibson Les Paul. Do you really? They didn't even go down the Epiphone route or anything like that. And that was when I started to kind of get a little bit cynical about, those kind. I suppose, I mean, I don't blame them. They've got a business to run. They've got a living to make. But it was like, I just wish they'd kind of title the videos something other than, kind of, or promote those videos in a way that wasn't so much of a public service thing. It's like, kind of, we've got this to shift, and maybe if you're looking for a Gary Moore kind of sound, then these are the options that we're kind of selling at the moment. That would have been a little bit more honest, I think. I try to sound like Gary Moore, a Marshall 9100, and the tone turned right down on my guitar goes a long way. Yeah. Talking about sound alikes, years ago, there used to be a pretty famous venue just over the road from me, literally just over the road from me, called the Red Car Bowl. Anyone else remember that one? And I saw an AC/DC tribute band there, and they were absolute. I think they were called Livewire or something like that. And the guitarist from that band was playing. I think it was. It wasn't a Les Paul or an SG kind of guitar. I'm trying to remember. I think it was an Ibanez, and he was plugged into a PV Bandit of all things, and he absolutely nailed it. So if ever there was an argument that the tone is in the fingers, then there you go. Yes, Colin remembers the Red Cabal. It's just a piece of waste ground now. It was demolished a few years ago, and it's a sad loss. I've seen so many great bands there. I live in Dudley in the south. I've only been as far north as Morecambe. Yes, well, yeah. There you go. If you come from Dudley, you probably have that Midlands accent, don't you? I'm from Dudley. Sorry, I shouldn't really do impersonations of accent. John, if money was no option, would you have just one guitar, and which guitar would you buy and why? Right, if I could only have one guitar, then I would be straight on the phone to Gordon Smith. Okay, because I love me Gordon Smith, and the only thing that it doesn't do that I really, really kind of sometimes need is that kind of quacky in between Strat sound. So it would be some kind of Gordon Smith, based on maybe the Gordon Smith that I've already got. Where is it? It's you can't see it. It's on the wall over there. It would be something like that, but maybe with a middle pickup. Craig remembers the Red Cabal. Yes, you work not far from there. Be careful, Black Country Bumpkin here. Sorry, yes. The thing is, I used to be at college with a bunch of lads from the Black Country. There was about half a dozen of them, and given the fact that they all used to call my nickname at college was Geordie, they all thought I was Oz off Auf Wiedersehen, pet. And so if they thought I was a Geordie, it was okay for me to think of them as Brummies. And they used to be kind of mutual banter about the incomprehensibility of each other's accents. My dad used to buy his specialist mags from a shop near the Red Cabal. Would that be what would be called a gentleman's special interest periodical? Is that what you're talking about, Simon? Dearie me. What's that? Oh, excuse me, I'll just move my mouse pointer out the way. John, you're not helping me make up my mind with Gordon Smith. No, just buy a Gordon Smith, mate. The thing is, back in the days when they were, in Manchester, and there was a Mr. Gordon and a Mr. Smith, wasn't there? And Mr. Smith ended up, I think it was John Smith, ended up kind of running the factory for the majority of the period, because Gordon went off and created Gordy guitars. There were good ones and there were bad ones. Let's put it that way. But since they've been taken over by Auden, who are, I'm informed, the parent company of Blackstar, they are a proper custom shop builder now. They are, you can spec it up on the website, but you can also, if you can't kind of get the combination of elements that you want from, what's available on the website, you can phone them up and say, build me this, and they will. And they use a lot of stock in their. They use a lot of stock in their VD. I don't know what you mean. Hey, chap yourself, Dave61. Heritage did a Gary Moore Les Paul, I think. Yeah, you don't hear much of Heritage guitars these days, do you? They were, if you're not aware of it, I'm sure you are, but somebody's bound to ask in the comments. Heritage guitars, when Gibson moved from Kalamazoo to Nashville, they basically, the old factory and a lot of the old employees stayed at Kalamazoo and started making guitars under the brand name Michigan, under the brand name Heritage, rather. Where did I get Michigan from? And they are apparently like really, really nice guitars. I saw Gary Moore on the Still Got the Blues tour, actually, in 1990, and he used a Heritage Les Paul style guitar for most of that gig. Anyway, guys, tell you what, just give me literally 2 minutes. I just need to go and take care of the call of nature. I won't be long. Oh, dearie me, that's better. There's nothing quite like it, is there? I do excuse me, but that sometimes when you got to go, you got to go. Jason, you got to go too, have you? I used to be a guitar shop in Old Snow Hill, Birmingham, till they shut it. Yeah, sorry, mate. Dan O'Sullivan, sorry, John, I meant Andertons use a lot of stock in their videos in reply to someone saying they received a used guitar that they should have been new. Yeah. Now, on that topic, there was a video ages ago when Chappers bought himself a PRS. It was like a really kind of properly expensive PRS, wood library kind of deal. And he bought it, and it was like a $5,000 guitar. And he was umming and ahhing, and, he bought it and he took it home and it was his and he paid for it. So, it was his guitar. I mean, good luck to the lad. If he can afford to spend that kind of money on a guitar, don't begrudge anybody that kind of thing. But then he appeared in a video where it was like, well, I'm not sure if I want it, and I'm not. Of all things, he was kind of moaning about the color of it. Like, come on, and this the question that and Lee, the captain, was saying, well, if you want to return it, that's no problem, as you would expect, But here's the thing: I think he ended up keeping it, but if that had been a guitar that he had sent back, would that have been put back on the shelf as a new one, or would it have been, a used guitar? I mean, it's academic because I think he did end up keeping it, but that did make me kind of wonder. Let's say. Afternoon, chaps. I got your mode course, John. Working my way through it, but still starting to click now. Any advice on improving my rhythm chops? Cheers from Pompey. Right. the best thing, honestly, I used to say the best thing that you can do to improve your rhythm is use a metronome, but I would kind of go beyond that now. Playing to a metronome is a little bit soul destroying. It has to be said. It can be a bit, it's a bit like that sort of Chinese water torture, kind of drip, 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 drip. So get yourself a really cool bit of software that's kind of, you get 14 days free trial on it anyway, fully functional. It's called Chord Pulse, and even when you pull the trigger and buy it, it's like 30 quid or something. And it just basically, it's a bit sort of basic and limiting, but you can put a chord sequence in and make an instant little jam track in like 30 seconds to practice to, and you can vary the tempo on it. So you can practice your rhythm chops to that, and it's like I tend to think of it as a metronome that will give you some kind of slightly more inspiring backing to play to. So, just another good thing you can do to improve your rhythm chops is, I wouldn't say learn to read music, but learn to read rhythm notation. Learn what quavers and semi-quavers and triplets and all of that sort of stuff is. Because once you can hear them, once you know how to hear those things and recognize them, you know how that where this note is supposed to land in relation to the metronome click, and how beats kind of work together and stuff. And it does make a difference to being able to figure out riffs and just play rhythm guitar and do all manner of useful things. Well, yes, somebody's been talking to me there, haven't they? Dancing can't beat umbongo, don't they drink it in the Congo? Yes. The way that I often teach rhythm is to kind of take common rhythmic words as I think of them, like a quaver and two semi-quavers, which goes da-da-ka. Like that, I always say, well, just rather than trying to think of it as one and like that, just think of it as fry sausage. And there's a certain type of rhythm combination of quavers and semi-quavers that comes out when you say it as umbongo, which was a child's juice drink that used to be on sale in the UK. So that's what that reference was all about. Oh, thank you, Kieran. Best thing you can do is have a Skype lesson with John about timing. Well, thank you very much, Kieran. You're making me blush now, but yes. I've been doing this 30 years. I've been doing guitar lessons for 30 years. And, when I look back and think of the kind of lessons I used to do 29 years ago, they probably weren't all that good. But, it's you learn to adapt, and you learn from your mistakes, and you learn to get better. And I like to think that what I do now is kind of offer a pretty decent service. I mean, it's not for me to judge, but I guess, you don't spend 30 years doing something for a living if you don't end up, being reasonably good at it. Oh, dearie me. Tonight is going to be a long one, I can tell. I've got... what is it Mickey Flanagan calls it? I've got the flavour. Yes. My main guitar is anything Strat shaped with a thin neck. My main guitar was from sort of about 1989 to 2003, 2004, so a good chunk of time. My main guitar was a Sonic Blue Japanese 60s reissue Strat that had EMG pickups in it, and it was a fantastic guitar. And I had the original Gordon Smith at some point during that period as well. But then I just kind of went off Strat. I realised that I wasn't using the bridge pickup by itself on the Strat. I wasn't using the middle pickup by itself on the Strat. I was basically using the neck pickup and probably the bridge and middle together. And it was like, well, I've got all of these options. I would rather have a guitar that had fewer options, but I was using all of them. And that's kind of what prompted me move to a Telecaster. I have to say, even when learning YouTube videos, being able to read the rhythm parts really helps. It does. And, you know, once you kind of start, here's the thing about learning to read music and learning to read rhythm notation. And this is a bit of a hobby horse of mine. Music is a language. And when you learn a language, it's the best thing to do is learn to speak that language first, and then learn to recognize what it looks like written down. But often the way music notation and reading music and reading rhythms are taught, it's like, this is what it looks like written down. Now figure out how that sounds. Okay, so you know, I came to it from the other angle, where I was kind of learning what the things I already knew and recognized the sounds of looked like written down. And I think that made it a bit easier for me. So if you do it that way around, take, for instance, any familiar riff, any familiar lick, or, you know, strumming pattern or something, learn what that looks like written down, and you'll stand a much better chance of getting fluent with it than trying to do it by learning the mathematical, you know, this is a quaver, or this is an eighth note, and this lasts for, you know, this period of beat or something. It's much more of a slog doing it that way. What you're saying, Craig? You taught me a lot. All them years ago. If it wasn't for your teaching, I wouldn't have gone on to study at college and get my music grades. Well, thank you very much, Craig. Craig Stamen is he's a, well, I still think of him as a young chap. He probably isn't very young anymore, but he was coming to me for lessons during the sort of, let's say, the mid 1990s, when I hadn't been teaching very long. And to be honest, when I think back to the lessons I was doing back then, I think I'm a better teacher now than I was then. But it's gratifying for you to hear you say that, Craig. Thank you very much. Nice to know that I've had a positive influence on some people. So what we're thinking about now, I'll tell you what, John, I love Telecasters, and that Harley Benton TE52 is some guitar for the money. A few upgrades and tweaks, and it's phenomenal, still for under 200 quid. I'll tell you the thing about that TE52, mate. It's essentially within a hair's breadth of being a classic vibe Squire, and it's 120 quid, you know. And even if you kind of just throw up a 30 quid, go on to Axes R Us and you can get a Wilkinson bridge for about 30 quid. Throw that on it. The Roswell pickups are fine, you know, but even if you did put, like, you know, Seymour's or DiMarzio's, or, you know, even Iron Gear pickups or something into it, it's still a fantastic, fantastic guitar. And let's face it, if you've got a good Telecaster style guitar, then what else do you need, really? You know, not what else do you want, what else do you need? Tim saying, teachers stick in the brain for better or worse. Indeed, Tim. Now, I know Tim, he's a teacher himself. And yeah, I have two examples of teachers. There is a PE teacher that I had when I was at secondary school, who, to this day, if I met him, I would still find it very difficult to be polite to him, put it that way. He was an absolute, well, I won't use the word, but he was one of those. And then, you see, I had a history teacher who, he used to wander around the classroom, and he used to just speak without notes and deliver the most fascinating lectures on things that would seem like an otherwise dry, like the Versailles Treaty or something like that. And, he used to leave you on absolute tenterhooks. He used to know how to structure each lesson so that he left a cliffhanger at the end of each lesson, so you'd want to go to the next lesson. And it was the most engaging, fascinating lessons that I've ever had. And I remember kind of days when I think, shall I bunk off school today? Oh no, it's Mr. Temple's history lesson today, I better go in. PE teacher in the film Kes, yeah, he was very much like that. Often our bad teachers are balanced by super ones. Yep, I'll go along with that. A good teacher can make a big impression, and so can a bad one. So that's all we'll say about that. Best thing I bought from Axis R Us are the treble bleeds for my Telecasters. Thanks for the recommendation. Yeah, it staggers me that a treble bleed, which if you're not sure what that is, it's just a little kind of two components, a capacitor and a resistor, that probably cost, I remember when I used to buy components from the Maplin catalogue or Radio Spares, you're talking pennies worth of components here, and that was to buy retail. And you put them onto a guitar and it completely transforms the guitar. You can actually use the volume control to, without the whole thing muddying up. And it just staggers me that they don't put them onto every guitar as a matter of course. Why would you not when they're that cheap? Anyway, chaps, I've just noticed the time. I better go and get some food prepared. Thank you again so much for all turning up here. I've absolutely immensely enjoyed it, as you can probably tell. And thank you for sticking with me throughout the gremlins and the technical difficulties. All things being well, we will be back in the same time, same place next week. And if I had a little bell, I should really get a little bell, shouldn't I, to ring at this time of the evening. But imagine I'm ringing a bell now and shouting, "Time, gentlemen, please." Thank you all, guys, for turning up. It's been marvellous as always, and I'll see you all again next time around. Cheers, folks.